With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here in the Bourbon Life Studios tonight is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
I'm good, Mark. Always great to be back here in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as your basement.
My basement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to be
right.
back. Great to get another episode going here. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great, Matt. It's been a great couple of weeks. Of course, we're wrapping up Bourbon Heritage Month here, so I'm a little bit sad about that. But
yeah, you are
it's been
running out of news programs to be on
I know.
in Central Kentucky.
You know, I'm kind of a big deal on local news, right? It's been great, man. I mean, I'm very fortunate, Matt, and I embrace any opportunity I have that someone says, "Hey, would you come and be on TV and talk about bourbon and Bourbon Heritage Month?" I'm going to take that opportunity, even if it is at 6:30 in the morning. I'm going to still do that. I may not be feeling the best from the night before, depending on what was going on, but I'm always going to do it. So, yeah, man, but it's been a great Bourbon Heritage Month. I'm already looking forward to next month, or next year, I should say, and doing it all over again, hopefully. But I do want to thank all of our sponsors, Matt, before we get in to the show. We appreciate everything that they do for us. We couldn't do this show and have all this fun without their help and their support. And with that said, Matt, would you like to tell everybody who we have with us this evening?
I would love to. Joining all of us here on the Bourbon Life Podcast this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever it is you are listening to us, is a man that we've been trying to pin down and had one little strikeout with, probably more our fault than his.
It was our fault.
But anyway, we are so glad that he was able to pin in some more time for us. He is the North American brand representative at Glencairn Crystal. That's right. You are probably familiar with Glencairn Crystal. If you've ever had a nice pour of whiskey out of a nice looking glass, kind of like this, then you are familiar with Glencairn Crystal. Marty Duffy. Marty, welcome on to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here.
Oh,
It's
man.
an honor.
Yeah, well, after our failed attempt previously a few weeks ago, I appreciate you having the patience to hang out with us, Marty. But, the fun thing is I like to tell people if I know our guest, I usually like to tell people how I know our guest. And I actually met you for the first time last year at the Bourbon Festival. And there was this guy walking around with his hat on, and he had this cane with him, and he had this vest on, and he had all these pins on it. And I was like, who's that guy, man? He is like such an interesting, just like the persona. I'm like, I want to know who this guy is. So then I find out he's the Glencairn guy. So I'm like, Glencairn guy. That's awesome. So then we went to the party, Matt, at David Mandel's house. I think it was Saturday evening, and Marty was there. And then we all went out to dinner together. So that was the first time I got to meet you, Marty. And then you popped back up again in my life for the Master of Bourbon exam that was at Buffalo Trace earlier this year. You were one of our distinguished judges. So it was great to see you again. And then again, got to see you shortly at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival again this year. So happy to have you on the show and happy to have you with us tonight to talk all things Glencairn and all things Marty Duffy as well. So
That's all things Marty Duffy.
That's right.
There's a book.
There is.
Soon
There should
the
be.
book will be coming out, and followed by the movie.
The movie. And
good.
Daniel Craig will play
Yeah.
you. Right?
That's right.
There you go.
Makes sense. Well, I don't know. I think he's getting a little too old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling. That's what I'm thinking now.
There you go. There you go. I think that would work. I could see it. Just have him grow a beard, and it's a dead ringer, Marty. There's no question about it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, we drink on this show and we review what we're drinking. So we've got some things poured up, and these are samples that I picked just based on what I thought would be fun to review with you. The first one I have, this is the High West Campfire. So this is from High West. People aren't familiar with this one. This is a blend of several different whiskeys. This is actually rye and bourbon and blended scotch, all three blended together. There's actually two different ryes in here. There is the MGP 95.5. There's also, I had to write notes on this because there was so much. High West also has an 80-20 rye that they've blended together. So that's the rye blend. Then there's a bourbon, 75-21-4, which is MGP. And then there's an undisclosed blended scotch. So those three items all blended together.
I'm
So
wondering
Marty,
if it's still the same whiskeys as when Dave Perkins owned the distillery. How old is that bottle? Is that
I just
an
got
older
this.
bottle?
No, a friend of mine just picked this up in Colorado for me actually earlier this year. She was out there. So this is Colorado, right? Am I
It's
right?
Park
Or
City, Utah.
No.
It's Utah.
Utah.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. They were out in Park City. And
'Cause
she
Dave-
messaged.
If I'm not mistaken, Dave Perkins sold the distillery not too long after the actual distillery was built.
Okay.
When he owned it, he was much like a Dave Schmier. He was sourcing whiskey and then batting it together. And in fact, one time I was at Dave Schmier asked me to come to his Indie Spirit Expo in New York. This would have been 2011 to pour for him. And so I was pouring at his table. He had Redemption Rye, which was MGP.
Mm-hmm.
And right next to him was Dave Perkins. He had his rye, with other whiskeys. And then in the next room was Templeton Rye. And so this was kind of, 2011 doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was a big deal because you had three whiskeys that were all being sourced from MGP. It was still kind of a big no-no to have sourced whiskey.
Right.
And yet you tried the three of them next to each other, all very different. The things they were doing with the ABVs on each one, the various ages that they're vatting together, all very different. That would have been a very good class on the talent of blending.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Basically the same whiskeys, technically, at least from the same distillery, and making very different whiskey from it.
Yeah. So Matt, I'm going to throw it to you in terms of the nose on this one, because there's one thing that jumps out to me, and that's all that jumps out to me. But I'm going to throw it to you, and you tell me what you pick up.
It's got I pick out like a smoky nose on it right at the front, and it's got kind of a malty, roasty note to it as well. There's a good sweetness with it, like kind of a toasty marshmallow sweetness. I actually pick up, I think some of the rye comes through, a little bit minty, a little spearmint. And then Mark, a note that you often get is bubblegum. I'm picking up bubblegum on the nose with this.
Bubblegum cards.
Yes. The old Topps baseball cards, right? Yeah. That's one of my favorite tasting notes, Marty. Topps baseball cards.
I used to get it all the time. I don't get it as much anymore.
So Marty, can I throw it to you? What else do you pick up on this one?
Well, I pick up the rye. Obviously, Matt, along with you. Anytime I've had Campfire, the smoky Scotch is what always comes through the most. But there's also like a toasted rye bread. I remember I used to love toasted rye bread as a kid, buttered. Ooh. And I'm picking that up here. There's also, I can see that minty character as well. Like fresh mint leaf.
Yeah, I'm actually getting some sweetness off of this as well. So I don't know if that's coming from the bourbon or not. But I've got to ask Marty, because I don't drink a lot of Scotch at all. I think I own 2 bottles of Scotch, and neither one of them are peated. So people talk about Scotch with peat and the smokiness. And some people say, well, there's a smokiness, but then there's a peatiness, and they're not exactly the same thing. So to me, this when I smell this, it makes me think of peat. Does this have peat on the nose, or can you
see when you talk about peat? Peat is actually, yes, peat will supply the smoking character, but
right?
Peat itself, when you say it has a peaty character, you got to remember peat is just dead vegetation.
Right.
It takes about 100 years to create 1 inch of peat. And it adds more of an earthy character.
Okay.
Think of going through, walking through the forest in the fall with all the dead vegetation around you. Stuff
Okay.
like that, wet earth, that kind of character. With this, there's a little bit of brown leaves,
Okay.
that you could associate with peat. Because
Okay.
peat, a lot of times, especially in Scotland, and I do believe they used to, if they're getting their scotch, well, they have to get their scotch from Scotland. But I don't know if they're using any
Right,
kind of,
yeah.
I don't think they're peating anything else. Peat is typically dead heather.
Okay.
Either whether purple or white, depends on what part of the country.
So maybe it is because when I've had some mezcal, especially like if it's the ancestral, then I get almost that same type of aroma, which obviously is not going to be peated. So maybe to me it's that smokiness that comes across and in my mind because I associate that to peat. Maybe that's the problem, that it's not peat. It's really just the smokiness that I'm trying to disseminate. So that's actually very helpful, Marty.
Yeah, they are definitely two different things.
Okay. Yeah. But that's definitely helpful to me, but there's a sweetness that comes through. Like I said, almost like a vanilla flavor aroma that comes out, almost like a bourbon,
Vanilla
that just
extract.
It just kind of comes out there. And that smokiness, now that it's been in the glass for a few minutes, it's actually feels like it's dissipated somewhat. And those other characteristics that you guys talked about are kind of coming out.
And if I could,
You've got
when
carte
you're
blanche.
nosing out of a Glencairn glass, try always nosing from the bottom and go straight up.
Oh, okay.
And you'll notice the heavier, earthier characters at the bottom rim, and then they get lighter and sweeter as you go up.
Man, I have never done that, Marty. Nobody's ever told me that before. I'm glad we got the expert on here. Yes. And it made a difference. I mean, as you were saying that, because I got that smoky, earthy aroma, and then as I moved up, it was almost replaced by that sweeter vanilla type of aroma that I was talking about.
Don't ask me to explain why. I didn't know, but you just get it.
It does. So, Marty, let's talk about you. I mean, all things Marty Duffy. Can we talk about your background? Because you've had quite a storied career in the industry and just an all-around good guy. You've done a lot of things. Can you talk about how you got into the industry itself, spirits, then how you got really into whiskey, and then moved on to Glencairn?
Well, it is a long, sordid story. A lot of people were killed in the making of this story. Oddly enough, I started off, I wasn't much of a drinker in my youth. When you went out with friends, you drank, but that's about it. It was until I was an actor. And I used to perform, if I could drop some famous names.
Yeah, please do.
Steve Carell, we used to perform in an improv group together. He obviously didn't make it as well as I did. Bob Odenkirk, guys like that. I was in that group in Chicago at the time. Anyways, as an actor, there was only one way to make a living, and that was bartending or waiting tables, either or. And I preferred bartending. The only problem was this was their late 80s, early 90s, and there wasn't a lot of training. You can go to a bartending school, but you'd spend $900 for 2 weeks to learn how to make a pina colada, which at the time was being made with mixes anyways, so it was horrible. So I didn't do that. The bartending paid very, very well. And then, but I did feel inadequate. I couldn't tell you the difference between a bourbon and a scotch, or If you ask me, Southern Comfort was a bourbon. Yeah, that's what everyone seemed to think. So I just went along with the crowd. Then I got an opportunity. It was about 96. I'd probably done a number of liquor promotions before then. But in 96, I got an opportunity to be a brand ambassador for Johnnie Walker. And I had really developed, I was a huge bourbon guy at first. I used to drink Booker Manhattans. That was my afternoon or my after shift drink. And sometimes I drink 3 of those. 30-ounce martini glasses.
Oh yeah,
I was a stud in my youth. Not so much today. But I had some Springbank 21-year-old and fell in love with it, and so I became enamored with Scotch and Scotland. So in this opportunity to become a Johnnie Walker brand ambassador, and not only Johnnie Walker but the classic malts, Lagavulin, Oban, Talisker. A number of others came along. I jumped at it. So for about 7 years, I did that as part-time, but did some huge travel the country, presenting to crowds of 150, 200 people at a time, doing whiskey seminars. And then they selected 7 of us to become what they would later go on called Masters of Whiskey, which I think you want to talk about later. Get in a little more in depth about that. But I did that for about 7 years, including 2 years over in Ireland, working over at Guinness as their reserve spirit ambassador. Then from there, I came home, did 1 more year as a master of whiskey, a senior master of whiskey, mind you. I got an upgrade. But then I quit. I left. It just felt repetitive. I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. But then I realized, I forgot. I need money to survive. Some cheddar cheese. So I started doing Irish whiskey tastings. I did classes, 2-hour-long classes that tied in Irish history to Irish whiskey. I did that, a bunch of other freelance whiskey stuff. Then Bacardi hired me as their Benedictine brand ambassador for all of the United States.
Okay. That
was something else. So I did that for about 18 glorious months. In the meantime, I told you I went out to New York and went to Dave Schmier's Indie Spirit Expo, which was, Dave is his own character. And so when he puts together a show, you just never know what might happen or if it will happen. But I loved it. I loved seeing what all these little guys were doing across the country, actually, even from around the world. It wasn't just a U.S. Thing. And obviously, again, 2011, it doesn't seem, what was it, 12 years ago?
12 years ago now. Yeah.
It still doesn't seem like it was that far back that, small indie brands, I mean, they had been around, but they weren't making much waves. But I just loved what these folks were doing. And it was so cool that these are independently owned. You had the guy, right, who was making it standing behind the table. Mm-hmm. And he was also the marketer. He was everything. Right. Or it was a couple. There was a lot of couples who owned distilleries. I just thought it was great. So I convinced Dave to bring it to Chicago. And together we co-produced the Chicago Independent Spirit Expo.
Very nice.
And we did that together for about 8 years. And that grew, the Chicago one grew to be the biggest one. We had 150 at our zenith, 150 exhibitors.
Oh, wow.
Small brands from all around the world. And we tried to recruit them as much as we could from every corner of the earth. But during that time, about 2014, I was approached by Andy Davidson, the youngest of the Davidson sons, from Glencairn, to be their North American brand representative. I knew the Davidsons for quite some time. I met them when they first launched the glass. And so I'd always been friends. And anytime I went over to Scotland, I'd visit them. And I think they felt bad for me. They realized I was on hard times. So when Andy came to my refrigerator box and knocked on it, see if I was still in there, wrapped in a blanket, bottle, curled up with the bottle. Yes, Marty, you want a second chance? And so I said yes. So I became the North American brand representative for Glencairn Crystal. And I
Very
think
nice.
the rest is now, a lot of it's getting murky as time goes on. A lot of it gets lost in shrouded in the mist of
secrecy.
lore and
Yeah,
myth.
that's what happens when you're at 007 status, though, man. You know,
That's right.
A lot of secrets there.
You lead a James Bondian lifestyle. You lead behind
man.
a James Bondian trail.
No, that's great. So, Matt, I'll tell you what, let's jump back over to the whiskey real quick. And I forgot to mention, this is at 92 proof, non-aged state. So I have no idea what the blends are, what the ages on this are. What do you get in terms of the palate and the finish on this one, Matt?
The palate on this, right up front, I get a nice note of like straw and kind of like honey. To me, it comes across as like honey graham cracker, a sweetness, kind of a crispness. I think that rye, that toasted rye bread that you were talking about, Marty, for me is coming through like graham cracker, a little sweeter. Then I get almost like a weird flavor that I've never really described before, but like a potato starch, kind of like it's hard to say, but like an earthy kind of vegetal starchy type flavor. And then it leads to like a malt ball. So if you can think of like the inside of a chocolate malt ball, maybe not so much the chocolatey part, but just the malted part on the inside. A little bit of a roasty finish, little smoky, campfire-y marshmallow toast on the end. I find it quite enjoyable.
Yeah, I get smoke.
Really?
It's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's it. And maybe a little bit of wet Band-Aid. I'm not sure. I mean, just call me crazy, man. For some reason, that's just that smokiness just comes through on the palate. I think to me, it drinks warmer than 92 proof. But
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised because I had to double check my notes and then looked at the bottle again just to make sure that I had it right. But but yeah, to me, just that smokiness comes through, and I think that's what I've got to get past in terms of the Scotch. Because everybody's like, you need to start drinking Scotch. You need to really appreciate it, and it's just when I get into smoky Scotches, I struggle with that, Marty. So,
Mark, may I suggest?
Yeah, please.
That when you drink a Scotch. The vast majority of single malt Scotches don't even use peat.
Right.
So you won't get a smoky character. There's some really beautiful, very light, fruity ones like Glen Grant has always been one of my favorite summer Scotches because it seems quite fruity to me. Or you can try something like an Oban, which has just a smidge of peated malt in it, and has a kind of an orange zest in the finish.
Nice.
Same thing with Klein Leash. And then also too, you can try some of the double matured. So something like Glenmorangie has all those finished whiskeys. Try those, and you won't be struggling with the smoky aspect. But you could try some that have just a smidge, and then work your way up a bit. You might find out you really love them. I mean, it screws with the mind.
Sure.
I was promoting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. I mean, it does. I mean, it's one of those things you just have to, it's like when you start drinking bourbon, it's not you don't drink bourbon and go, oh my God, this is absolutely delicious. I love it. You grow to appreciate it. And then you really grow to enjoy the flavors. Yeah. And I'm sure that's the same with Scotch.
When I was promoting the single malts in the 90s, especially Lagavulin and Talisker, I mean, they thought this was alien stuff. They didn't understand it. I mean, you have a sip of Lagavulin or Ardbeg or Lefroy, your mouth just fills up with each one has a very different kind of smoky character.
Okay.
But to me, Lagavulin, it's like you just inhaled a campfire. And but it's really soft. To me, it's a really beautiful soft campfire. and I love campfires. So
Who doesn't love a
That's
campfire, right?
a little campfire in a glass. Beautiful.
Yeah. So Marty, I
But-
should have asked you as well. What do you get in terms of the palate and finish on this one? This campfire. Campfire?
Yeah. Well, I'm not picking up all that smoke.
Okay. All right.
Really. I mean, it was a little more prominent on the nose than it is on the palate. Matt, you had a note for it that I totally agree with. Oh shoot, I forget which one it was though. You had some good ones in there.
He had so many. He had honey. He had potato starch, vegetal type of potato starchy. What else did you have? The rye bread.
For me, it was like
Can't remember what else.
malt ball, honey graham
Malt ball.
cracker. So
I can see the malt, definitely, and that obviously that too could be the influence of the single malt. Plus, just about every whiskey is going to have malted barley in it. Most of the American whiskey. But you know what, Mark, you're saying it was hotter because that's the thing. Even I've added a little water to it, just a few drops, but still has a little bit of a prickliness to it that I wouldn't expect from a 92.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's still on the finish. I'm getting that what you call prickliness. I agree with that 100%. That's why it's like this to me drinks even in the back of my throat. I feel this warmth that I usually don't get from a 92 proof whiskey. So, but I will admit I do like it. When I first opened this and tasted it, that smokiness was a bit of a turnoff. So this is the first time I've not revisited it since. But I'm happy that I did. And I thought, who better to have this with than Marty Duffy? So yeah.
Next time I see you, we'll try some Isla single malts and see what you think.
All right.
Because they vary.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been to Delilah's in Chicago?
Mm-hmm. I have not.
So they were voted a couple of years ago. They were voted world's best whiskey bar.
Okay.
And I think they even got placed in Mike Miller's been put in the Whiskey Hall of Fame, World Whiskey Hall of Fame. But Mike once said something that I thought was so true. If you like bourbon, you'll like all bourbons to varying degrees. I mean, there'll be some you really love, and then there'll be some maybe not so much. But it has a very common flavor, that runs through bourbon. You taste a bourbon and go, oh, that's bourbon.
Right.
But single malt scotches, you could taste an island whiskey that's heavily peated, very briny. Mark, you mentioned something about iodine or Band-Aid.
Band-Aid, yeah.
So you get that from island whiskeys, which tend to be more heavily peated. Talisker always has been called the Band-Aid Scotch. But then you go to the other end of the spectrum, and there's some that are so light and so sweet that you just go, huh? That you're almost confused with an Armagnac.
Well, those are the ones I need to find and start with for sure, Marty. There's no question about it. Well, guys, I tell you what, we're actually at the end of round one here. So let's just take a quick break. We'll get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Marty Duffy from Glencairn Crystal in just a minute.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
From our good friends at The Stave comes Lexington's newest hot spot to meet up with friends, have fun, and eat some great food. District 7 Social is a social and beer hall, but it's a lot more than that. Located in Lexington's Distillery District, it's the home of Lexington's first duck pin bowling lanes, and it also features a self-serve beer wall. That's right, self-serve. And if you want more, they've got it. You can try one of their delicious cocktails from the bar or order some great German fusion food from their on-site eatery, Germanish. So what are you waiting for? Be seen, be social. District 7 Social. All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how are you doing out there in the studio?
Hey, I am your good friend, Matt, and I am doing great out here in front of the fireplace. You are holding it down in mission control there, Houston.
Yeah.
Everything looking good?
Yeah, man, we're doing great. This is a lot of fun. I've been wanting to get Marty on the show, so I'm happy to have him on. Oh, I ruined it. I already told everybody if they're just tuning in.
Christ.
We got to start. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Man. I tell you what, how many shows have I? This is episode 190. You think by now I would have this down
Can't take this
and know
guy
what
anywhere.
I'm doing? Goodness gracious. I'm so sorry. But before we berate Mark anymore, I do want to thank all of our sponsors for everything they do for us. Of course, after this show, they may say no more, but we appreciate their support, everything they do. With that said, Matt, why don't you tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
All right, I'll reveal the surprise.
Woo! Surprise!
We have Glencairn Crystal's North American brand representative, Marty Duffy, is back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Marty, how you doing over there?
I am wonderful, hunky-dory. I'm just like a little bug in the rug.
Man, we're thrilled to have you here. Now you are joining us from Chicago, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Windy
that's what
City, that toddling town.
Yeah.
Al
So have you-
Capone's hangout.
Have you gotten down into like the 30s up there yet? I'm just curious.
No, not at all yet. I'm waiting for it. I love
It'll be-
Chicago winters. I'm probably an
God.
outlier on that, but no, I love Chicago winters, and it's in the 70s right now.
Is it? All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty nice weather. We decided to jump back up into like the mid 80s here in Kentucky for
Yeah.
some reason for the last week of September. It's like,
You're
What the hell?
Kentucky.
well, but the Bourbon
story.
Festival, I mean, last week, right? I mean, it was beautiful weather. It was like
It was, but that was weird.
that was a fluke. That really was.
Yeah. Usually, if I go down to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, I am melting like Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
bad.
No, you and me both. Of course, then you got little guys like Matt that could be 95 degrees, and he's like, it doesn't matter to him. But the
One
bigger,
little tiny bead of sweat.
yeah, a bead of sweat. But the bigger guys like us, Marty, I mean, we're weather sensitive.
We are. But I'm built for cold, and that's how
yes.
I like it. If I wasn't afraid of being eaten by bears, I'd move to Alaska.
Really?
Bears would smell me out. I smell
And
like
they'd-
bacon to them.
Oh yeah, they'd find you.
Yeah.
They'd find you and eat you. No question about it.
Either
All right,
eat
guys.
me or adopt me. One of the two.
This round we have from Bulleit Bourbon a single barrel pick. This is the one that Matt and I and Chad, one of our buddies. If you ever listen to the crew episodes, you hear Chad on there with us. He's My Daily Bourbon on Instagram. But Chad did this with us. This is one we call 11 Point Buck. I'm disappointed because I don't have our fun little sticker that we did. We debated on whether or not to do it. I'm not a big sticker fan, but we decided to do it. 11 Point Buck. This is actually 11-year-old pick. This one comes in at 104 proof. Matt, I forgot what the mash bill was, but then I found the note that said 75-21-4. Does that sound right to you?
If you're saying it does, then it does.
That's interesting. So, typical Bulleit bourbon is 60, or was back in the day when I used to work for them. It was 68 for 28%
Okay.
rye,
Okay.
4% barley. But 11 years ago it was being made at Four Roses.
Right.
Four Roses did the exact same thing that they're doing for their own whiskey, mingling about 10 different mash bills.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So if this is a single barrel, then that means it's one of those 10, yeah?
Yeah. So in their
Sure.
mash bill, they have the two different rye levels, right? So they got a 21% and what is it, 36%, Matt? Is that the higher rye mash bill
I
for
forget
Four
the
Roses?
exact numbers, but I know it's a significant step up.
Yeah, I think it's 36. And I think this one that we picked is actually, I think it's the 21.
Yes, I know it was
21%.
the lower of
The
the
lower
two
rye.
rye percentages.
Yeah. But this was our first barrel pick that we did for the Bourbon Life. One of our few and only, but still our first. But this, Marty, I wanted to share this with you because, I knew you used to work with Diageo and obviously this brand, right? So I thought it'd be fun to include this one as well. Matt, we haven't talked about this one, and it's been a hot minute, man, since we've had this.
Yeah,
at least
been
since I've had
hasn't it?
Yeah. So what do you think? What are you picking up on the nose on this one? Is it as what you remember, or?
Let's see, because we've had it so many times. I feel like every time I try it, I get something a little different, while some things remain the same. It's creamier than I remembered on the nose. More vanilla, more like toffee, more nougat right up front. Kind of more of like that pulled candy type aroma. A little bit of like sweet cornstarchy aroma on it as well. And then fruity. It's got more red fruit, more berries than I remembered. But I do remember still getting some fruit. And like a little bit, one of the things I remember very distinctly about this pick, and I'm sure we might pick it up on the palate as well, it was a big note for me, was like a creme brulee. It had kind of all those flavors and aromas of a creme brulee, and I'm picking that up on the nose. I think I could distinguish that one pretty significantly in this. Yeah.
I mean, I agree, Matt. I don't remember it. I mean, I love the nose on this, and I don't remember it smelling this good to me. I mean, I loved our pick, but this is when you and Chad, you've outvoted me because this was not the one that I wanted to pick, but this is the one you guys decided on. So that's what we went with. But yeah, those red fruits like you talked about, Matt, comes through. Just that sweetness. I don't get the burnt sugar or the brulee, but like you said, maybe that'll come through on the palate. But yeah, really, really nice, man. And again, this is 104 proof, so not like it's, it's not really singeing the nose hairs or anything at 104 proof at all. It's very pleasant on the nose. Marty, what are you picking up?
The first thing I got was like white toast.
Okay.
There's a like white red toasted white bread, and then there's a bit of apple. I'm getting apple for some reason. Like at first it was kind of a red apple skin.
Okay.
But now there's even a little bit of green apple to it, which is weird. This doesn't smell like the Bulleit I remember.
Right. Yeah.
Very different.
Matt, you talked about nougat, and I was smelling, and I was it was reminiscent like what is it, a Milky Way that has like the fluffy interior that is that nougat? That's nougat, right?
Yeah, like the inside of a Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. Yes, that's what it was. Not a Milky Way. Three Musketeers. Exactly. As you were saying that, I was like, man, that's what this reminds me of. That sweetness. I don't know, just a really nice combination of flavors there. So, Marty, looks like you're adding a little bit of water with the official kit. I'm going to brag for just a moment because we'll talk about the Master of Bourbon here a little bit later. But Glencairn was gracious to provide all of us who participated in the Master of Bourbon exam earlier this year with this beautiful Glencairn tasting kit. There's an entire box. It's not just a glass. It comes with its own beautiful box, very well packaged. I think there's 4 Glencairns in it. They each have toppers. Got this beautiful crystal pipette that comes with it as well for adding water.
Glencairn glass on top.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Look at that. Oh,
very nice. And the toppers.
Handcrafted.
Is it really?
No.
Okay. I was like, Jesus, that would be crazy. Okay. But yeah, the toppers, I really, really enjoy these. And that's something I don't think a lot of people use. But if you're pouring up ahead of time, these are great to have to add on your glass. So Marty, thank you.
Those are tasting caps, and I prefer those over the watch covers.
Okay.
A lot of people use, the concaved lenses that people place on top, only because those slip off so easily, whereas these are they stay in place.
Yeah, these have little edges and the little handle on top, and they fit perfectly right over the glass.
I thought those went like right here.
They're like
Matt.
Glass pasties. That's for the after hours show, Matt. Come on, man. Keep it in your pants, man.
Little see-through pasties. Exactly what everyone.
They're handcrafted.
Oh gosh. We're deteriorating here. All right. So Marty, let's talk about Glencairn Crystal. Let's talk about the brand, the company itself. Can you give us a history of the brand, how it got started, and then
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the company started back in 1981 with Raymond Davidson, who had been working in the glass industry for a number of years. But he saw a big opportunity to do decanters, special decanters for the Scotch whiskey industry, specifically. Because our studio's located in East Kilbride, Scotland, which is just outside of Glasgow. And the only problem was, there were still people buying high-end scotches, but it wasn't anything like it would be another 20 years later. Scotch, especially single malts, hadn't really caught on in a big way over here. You had Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, and then Macallan came around in the late 80s and started making the premium single malt Scotch. And that led into what later became the small batch bourbons.
Right.
That was kind of in response to that. So Ray always, you would go into bars and ask for a whiskey and they'd serve it in one of these tumblers, the thick tumblers. Mm-hmm. They had them over in Scotland just like we did. And he hated them. So don't you have a nice glass? Something really nice I could put in. Hey. And so they use brandy snifters, but brandy snifters are for
brandy.
Yeah, very good. There was no whiskey glass. And it's funny to think of it now, because now you have a slew of different whiskey glasses. At the time, there was the tumbler or there was a brandy snifter. And oddly enough, too, brandy snifters were seen as being a little effeminate. So a lot of guys didn't want to use them. So he came up with the Glencairn glass. Excuse me, intruder here. Get out of here.
Cat alert.
That's my producer. He came up with the Glencairn glass, the design, but then he thought, nobody's gonna do this. So he put it on a shelf, literally put it on a shelf for nearly 20 years until his oldest son came to work for him. And his son was just looking around. He said, "Dad, what's this?" And he said, "Oh, it's just an idea I had. Nobody will go for it." But his son said, "You know what? Let me try something." So he reached out to 5 different master blenders, 2 of which still are working today. Richard Patterson and don't blank on his name. He's with Balvenie. They'll come to me. Anyways, they helped design the bowl, the width, the length of the neck, the width of the mouth, whether it should have a stem or just a base. That was launched at Whiskey Fest, New York in 2001.
Wow.
So only 22 years ago. And it just took off like a rocket. Obviously, all the whiskey brands were there and they all loved it. And we were already making etched decanters and bottles for the whiskey industry. So when they saw this, can you put our logo on it? I said, yeah. Hey. And since Whiskey Fest was over here in the States, they were doing Whiskey Live over in London, but then also Whiskey Fest over here in the States, which also opened it up to all the bourbon guys. And so everyone just started eating it up. They loved it. To the point, which is really crazy. I mean, I just had to remind a woman who was doing a whiskey festival out west that she was claiming that they were giving away Glencairn tasting glasses. Glencairn with a small G, which was kind of a giveaway. Yeah. And I go, well, what's are you? But she was showing a photo of a completely different glass on the page. I reached out to her. I said, "Are you using our glass? If so, why do you have a picture of someone else's glass?" And her response, was one that I've gotten a lot of, where she thought it was like you would call a brandy snifter, a balloon glass, or a brandy snifter. She thought a Glencairn glass was just a ubiquitous, this kind of term that you just use for a whiskey glass, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, it's great. We're synonymous with being a whiskey glass,
right?
But people don't realize it's a brand, and that we do own the 3D copyright on it. So nobody can ever copy it in any way, shape, or form without our permission. If they do, this guy comes after you. And you don't want to see me usually about 1 o'clock in the morning, dressed in black. Yeah. So yeah, that was about. It's taken on a life of its own, but at the same time, there's still a lot of education out there to be done, where a lot of folks just don't realize that there's a company called Glencairn that actually is really the only true source. If you here, I'm going to use the we since I have whiskey in here. If you don't see Glencairn written on the bottom of the glass, etched into the bottom of the glass, it's not a Glencairn glass, and most likely it's a knockoff from China.
Yeah. I mean, that's something, Marty, I never thought about that, but that's true. It's almost like, people Xerox. I'm going to Xerox this,
Kleenex.
Yeah,
Ziploc.
Kleenex, right? Because it's a brand. Yeah, exactly right. You get to that point where you're synonymous with what that actually is, that people just think that's the name of the brand. And I mean, that's kind of when you know you've reached a level of success with your product, right? Because people just think that's what it's called, and they use that term. So, but then again, from a trademark perspective and everything else, and you gotta make sure you're protecting your company as well, that people aren't out there using that name.
We had a couple of guys who were actually customers of ours, so it's kind of nasty that they did this, but they wanted to make a wooden version of it, which was a little goofy, because the whole idea is that it takes on some more flavor and color of the wood from the glass while you're drinking it. And unfortunately, they used the wrong type of wood, so it leaked. But we told them, you can't use this. They must, and they said, well, we're going to try it anyways. They must have thought we were bluffing, that there isn't a trademark, because the patent did run out years ago. That doesn't matter. We have a universal trademark. So even if you're on Mars and you want to try to, or another galaxy, the universal trademark.
There you go. Universal. It's worldwide, like Prestige worldwide.
Yeah.
So Marty, what is it about the Glencairn Glass though? What is it, number one, that makes it so successful, other than of course it's amazing North American brand representative? And number
it was amazing before I came on board. It was doing pretty well for itself before I came around.
And number two, what, just the second part of that question real quick, what can you just, after you answer that, just talk about the glass itself and why it's so good for tasting?
Well, the first part is the glass. The glass has just a very cool, iconic shape, and the reason I can say that is that everywhere I go, you see the logo being used, or you'll see the glass being used in logos. You see whiskey clubs. It's become. The glass itself has become synonymous with whiskey. Yep. You have a shirt that has a shape like the Glencairn glass and a little brown liquid in it. What do you think it is? Is that iced tea? No, that's a whiskey glass because of the shape of that glass. It's just, it just has that. I mean, even Bourbon and Beyond, which was going on the same time as Kentucky Bourbon Festival, they were using our glass, and again, they did not know that it was a patented, or a copyrighted shape. So I had to educate them.
We sent them a letter, and the next.
Well, here, let me show you a little something that. Let's see, where is it? Right here. So, I use the term. That the boys in Scotland kind of like. I said, if we're ever going to sue someone, let them know that the crystal hammer is going to come down on them. So, much like Thor,
yeah, there you go, man. Nice.
they created an honest-to-God crystal hammer for me.
No, yeah. You let them know then. Yeah.
God, it's hefty. Oh.
And only you can lift
me
that,
and
right?
Chris Hemsworth, when I hold it,
Yeah.
people go, oh my God, it's Chris Hemsworth. Yeah,
That's right. Maybe he'll play you in the movie.
Yeah.
You never know, right?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So let's talk about, in terms of the actual design of the glass, what is it about it that makes it so good for whiskey tasting?
Well, a lot of the glass, I know Raymond says that he was inspired by cognac glasses. If you ever gone over to France, you go into a cognac distillery and you'll see this very light. It almost looks like Glencairn glass, except the neck, the chimney of it goes up a little higher and a little thinner.
Okay.
But then it comes down into the bulb. Then it has a long stem and a base. So he just made it wider. And then getting the input from the various blenders. Over in Scotland, a blender very rarely, if ever, tastes the whiskey. They'll nose it.
Yeah.
When they're going through the various casks. And, you need something that's going to drive the aroma. You have to drive the aroma of that whiskey down from here and bring it up, a concentrated version. That's why a whiskey, like a tumbler, or even worse are the thick beveled glasses that you get in a lot of restaurants. It disperses the aroma. And what is our sense of taste is roughly about 85% our sense of smell. So you take away the sense of smell, you're not bringing all that aroma to the party. You're not really tasting the whiskey. You're tasting some of it, a shadow of it, really. So this really brings in so much more. And that, like I said, if you're nosing it down at the bottom base, you'll pick up the earthier, heavier characteristics, then slowly go up, bring your nose up, and it gets lighter and sweeter, but also side to side. So check the different, points of the compass on your glass and see if you ain't picking anything up. And you guys probably already know this. When you're nosing a whiskey, you also have to check to see which nostril is on duty. So when your nostrils shuts down basically once every 3 to 4 hours. So you see which one's working, and then you favor that one.
Well, that's what, Freddie Johnson actually told us that a couple months ago on this show. And
I told Freddie.
I figured you probably told Freddie.
He knew that.
But I had never heard that before. So I do that every time I nose now. I go side to side until I can figure out which one I'm picking up. But I did not know to start from the bottom and go back up to the top. But Matt, let's talk about the whiskey. Let's talk about it in terms of the palate and the finish. What are you getting on our 11-point buck pick?
It's nuttier than I remembered. It's got a nice nut brittle type flavor right from the start, kind of a crispy, sweet nut caramel, brittle type flavor, kind of that roasted, toasted taste to it. Then there's vanilla. There's a creaminess coming through. A little bit of softer fruit, kind of mid palate, with like a touch of wintergreen. I think some of the rye comes a little bit minty, but the finish again for me is kind of that toasted sugar, that creme brulee coming down the pipeline. Yeah.
I mean, I agree that the sweetness comes through. The finish has a little bit of that spiciness to it, almost like a cinnamon, kind of like a sweet cinnamon, maybe like a red hot candy or something like that. I kind of get that finish off of this one. So, but I really enjoy this. I mean, I forgot that. I mean, you and Chad actually picked a winner, Matt. I got to give you credit
You're too
because
kind.
I didn't want this one. I wanted a different pick, but yeah, man, it's fun to go back and revisit this bottle because I've probably not had this in a year. I mean, it sits here, and it's just not something I pick up just because it was our pick, But Marty, what do you think? What do you pick up in terms of the palate and the finish on this one?
Well, cinnamon, you're spot on with cinnamon. I've added a little bit of water to it, and the cinnamon pops up on the nose. But I was also picking up, before I added the water, I was going to kind of a cinnamon ruffle on the tongue. The cinnamon always gives you that kind of against the grain on the old tongue. And there's a slight bit of waxiness, like a wax fruit.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys, how well do you know the history of Bulleit?
I know a little bit just because I'm an attorney here in Lexington and used to be a runner for law firms here in town. So I knew of Tom years ago. But I didn't really know much about the brand itself, but I remember, that he started it back when, there really was not much going on in the bourbon industry. It seemed like, and I always thought that's just crazy. This guy's an attorney with a really big firm and pretty successful here in Lexington and is doing a bourbon brand. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but that's about the extent of what I know about it.
Yeah. If you ever want the whole story, it's fascinating. I was in a bar in Louisville once with Dan Gardner. You know Dan?
Yep.
So Dan was working for Seagram's back then, so he knew all about it. But I guess Four Roses wanted to create their own Bulleit County whiskey.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they approached Tom, because Tom had the rights to Bulleit. Spelt differently, I believe. Yes, but still too close. So they want to buy it. And Tom, being the crafty lawyer that he is, he said, you can buy it, but you got to take me along with it. But that was that whole mingling of the various mash bills was a Seagram's thing, a Samuel Brownford thing.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what they did with Crown Royal.
Yep.
Canada. And so that it was interesting that got carried over, even though Diageo or Pernod could have had Four Roses. Neither decided to have it. I think Diageo kind of got it, but then sold it to Kirin, a Japanese beer company.
Yep.
But it was interesting that they kept that process, and then they kept it for, even though Diageo sold the distillery, they kept Bulleit brand and kept that whole process going. I'm kind of curious. I'd love to see if the new distillery, they're very secretive. And I've known a couple of people who used to work at the new distillery. And I'm trying to squeeze information. I'm just out of my own curiosity. I'm no investigative reporter. But whether they're still doing all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know. We've not had anybody on the show with us from Bulleit, so maybe that's something we need to work on. But if we find out, Marty, we're gonna let you know. Yeah.
Have you met Liz Rhodes?
No,
Liz?
We have not. When we did our pick, actually, Melissa Riff was the person that led us through that, and now Melissa is the master taster for Old Forester. So she assumed that position after Jackie Zykin left. But yeah, Melissa led us through that tasting when we did our barrel pick. Now she's at Old Forester. So no, we haven't had really much connection or contact with Bulleit, but probably need to fix that.
Liz was there was about 3 women. It was kind of a big deal when it was going on, who put together the new distillery. But then within a short period of time after it was kind of up and running, all 3 women were no longer with the company for various reasons. But Liz is now running production manager for Whistle Pig in Vermont. But she knows where a lot of the bodies are buried, if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, maybe we need to talk to her, and then we can ask her these questions. That might be a good plan. Guys, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, we're at the end of round 2. I was just going to say, why don't we take a quick break? Get a word from our sponsors, and then we can come back and pick up and finish it out on round 3. So everybody just sit tight. We'll be back with more with Marty Duffy with Glencairn Crystal in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me still here in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, Matt. Yeah, Matt, you're still here, man. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Hey,
how you doing out
absolutely.
there?
I'm great. We have made it this far. I'm not going to quit on you at this point. I hope our listeners aren't quitting on us either.
I hope not either, Matt. That would be a shame. But I do want to thank all of our sponsors. Appreciate everything they do for us. We couldn't do the show without their help and support.
I hope they don't quit on us either.
I hope they don't quit on us either, Matt. You're exactly right. I hope not. So, Matt, would you like to tell everybody who we have with us on the show this evening?
That's right. Speaking of guests that haven't quit on us either, he is the North American brand representative of Glencairn Crystal, Marty Duffy. Marty, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast.
It's exhausting.
Tell me about
Grueling.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. Why don't you just have me run the
Chicago
mile
Marathon.
or something,
Yeah.
or do an Ironman competition?
oh, there you go. Speaking of which, Matt's a big Iron Man guy, Marty.
Are you?
it. So is
yeah,
Mark.
he does them. Oh no,
What?
I did
Are
one.
you?
Yeah.
I did one 10 years ago. Yeah, but
Yeah, I did one last week.
Yeah.
In my sleep. Boom.
Oh, there you go. I retired. Matt still does them. Matt does like,
Wow,
how
that's
many,
great.
Yeah.
How many have you done this year, Matt? 3?
I did 2 fulls this year. Did one 2 weeks ago.
2 full? 140.
What is it, Matt? What are the 3?
Yeah.
It's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and a marathon.
My feet already hurt. Wow.
Yeah. Matt has become very, very good at doing those. He finishes usually in the top 5 in his age group and usually in the top 10 or 15 people overall of the race.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's great.
He is fueled by bourbon.
That's right.
But my brother used to do that, and he used to train. He loves his beer. He's a beer guy.
Yeah.
And he used to train. He couldn't stop drinking beer, but he knew he couldn't be drinking beer. So he drank non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay.
yeah, he thought it was perfect for it.
That's like
Also, I heard
it's the new
Guinness is really good.
the new craze within like athletes is all the breweries and all the companies are now making craft non-alcoholic beer and marketing it towards athletes.
Yeah, I don't get it.
What's the
I
point?
mean, I'm not one to say, okay, drink because it's alcohol. I mean, I
Right.
like whiskey because of the taste of whiskey. I like rum because of the taste of rum. I don't drink vodka because I don't like the taste of vodka. There's no taste to have to like. I love gin because of the taste of a good gin. But I don't know. I've had, they have all those non-alcoholic spirits, like a non-alcoholic gin.
Mhm.
And to me, it just tastes like, that water you get in really nice hotels in the lobby.
Yeah.
They have
Oh,
the big
yeah.
thing with the
Cucumbers
rosemary
and
and
lemons.
lemon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. That's what it tastes
Yeah.
like to me.
That's
I don't know,
that's
am I
funny.
missing something?
I've had non-alcoholic beer, but I've never had non-alcoholic spirits. So
I know there's a non-alcoholic whiskey. I might even tried it, but that's how forgettable it was.
yeah, I know there's a couple. I've seen them on the shelves actually, and seen ads for them, but it doesn't capture my attention. It's just I'm going to drink responsibly, but at the same time, I'm going to drink because I like the flavor, and I just can't imagine you're going to be able to get the same type of flavor out of a non-alcoholic spirit. But speaking of spirits, let's talk about what we have poured up. This is Maker's Mark 46. This is Cask Strength. This is my favorite high rye bourbon, which I'll explain a little bit later as we get into this a little bit further. But yeah, so Maker's Mark 46, Cask Strength. This one, the Maker's Mark, I got to look at my notes again. The mash bill on this one, I think it's technically undisclosed, but it's a 70-16 wheat, which is red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. This cask strength actually is 111.2 proof. So we've moved up quite a few proof points, and makers, they take the standard maker's mark that they age for around 6-7 years. Then they finish them with those finishing staves, and that's how they make 46. When we had Denny Potter on the show when he was still with makers, and I think the concept behind this was that Bill Samuels Jr. wanted to kind of leave his mark on the brand. I mean, they had maker's marks from 1953 up until around 2013 for 60 years. Bill Samuels Jr. wanted to make a different product. So he came up with the 46. They developed that, and he calls it makers on steroids. Wasn't that right, Matt? Is that kind of the...
Yeah, I think that they started the stave finishing series, and he just kept saying, more 46.
Yeah.
Which
so that's
stave profile
kind of
46 was
right,
that particular stave, and so that's where 46 came from, because every time that they tried to roll out a new experimental project, he was always just like, more 46. Give them more.
And their naming profile, every naming convention at Maker's Mark sucks. I mean, every experimental collection, RC6, BESEX 42. I mean, I don't understand that. And I think most of
what are they making, robots?
I know, seriously.
I've said it before. It sounds like they're naming Mazdas.
Yeah.
the new Maker's Mark Mazda RC6. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. So the joke on this one is that, well, I'll get to it in a minute. Let's just go to the nose. Matt, what do you pick up on it?
Got a nice big bouquet of like red fruit, berries. Get a lot of orchard fruit coming across, a lot of like luscious strawberry, cherry, raspberry notes. And then for the first time on this, I pick up like fresh sawdust coming across.
Okay.
That I've never smelled before on this, but creamy vanilla definitely has toasted bread aroma on it as well. I think definitely playing to the weeded side of it.
I'm going to do my best Denny Potter imitation here. Vanilla, caramel. It's Maker's Mark on steroids, right? But the strawberries, Maker's always comes across as strawberries to me, Matt. And I do get that. You talk about red fruit, strawberries you even mentioned. That sticks out to me. And it could just be because I know it's Maker's Mark and I'm just looking for that note. But I do pick it up. But also, the caramel, the vanilla, the standard, it's within the guardrails of Maker's Mark. I mean, that's what they're known for, right? The vanilla, the caramel, those traditional type bourbon notes, and that's what they really want to accentuate. So Marty, what else do you pick up there? You look like you're having a good time with that glass, so I don't want to interrupt you, but
yeah, it actually keeps on growing. I think as it breeds a bit. The first thing I thought it was a little hot. First time I nosed it, really kind of stung my nose. But see, that's died down now. And the first thing I got was candied Red Hots.
Yeah. Okay.
Up front, but totally agree with both of you as far as red cherry and strawberry. Get both of those. Strawberry over here in the corner.
Yep.
The red cherry right down here near the base. There was something else I got. Oh, frankincense.
Really?
Go figure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Must be the Catholic boy in me. I just pick up a little frankincense. Smells like a church.
It must be. It may be that Glencairn, Marty. I don't know that I washed that before I sent it to you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, blessing them with some frankincense.
Frankincense. Yeah, I was ridding it of all the evil spirits and whatnot. So I just thought I'd put a little frankincense in there for you. So
I'll bring that up to the boys in Scotland, but Davidson boys are heathens.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some things off the Glencairn path here. Marty, you're involved. We mentioned it earlier. You and I, met again at the Master Bourbon exam, the Master of Scotch exam at Buffalo Trace earlier this year.
Master
of Whiskey now. Yeah, there you go. Right. So that's going to be the new certification. Well, I shouldn't call it certification. The new exam, the new level that they're offering.
Yeah, it's a certification, isn't it? I mean, have they changed? Have you heard them say otherwise?
Jorn sent me an email after I was on TV,
said no,
and I said
don't
that I was a certified master of bourbon. He's like, no, you are a master of bourbon. Certified is for bourbon professional and whiskey specialist. So I'm like, okie dokie.
That's
So,
what
but
you
I
get
get
from
it.
a master sommelier. He has to be nitpicky.
So they are going to start the Master of Whiskey as well, which will be next year in Scotland. But Marty, you're on the advisory council for that. You're also a judge for that. You take your time to do that. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with the council and why you spend the time and effort to do that?
Well, it's interesting. Joey contacted me, Jorn, better known as Joey. He contacted me, I think, through LinkedIn. Now, he is a master sommelier. And so he really knows the whole sommelier thing. He knows his wines. He knows whiskey, but that's obviously not his main focus. So he was looking for someone to kind of introduce him to the whiskey world. And that's where, I don't know what on my LinkedIn account. I mean, I guess it does and I post a lot about whiskey.
Sure.
Almost every day I post articles and updates and news on whiskey. So he must have thought, hey, this is the guy I should talk to. Except it'd be more like, Marty, hey, can I talk to you? You know, he has that little, what was that, Austrian or German accent?
German? Yeah, something, yeah.
So, he and I had long talks on the phone. He's out in California. I'm here in Chicago. And he was asking who would be great advisors, people we can talk to, people, on all different levels of the whiskey world. And so I point him in the direction of folks I knew, where they'd be distillers. Obviously, I thought whiskey writers would be good because they're not tied to a certain brand. So you didn't feel like there was going to be an infomercial, that this was going to be non-biased. And so that's when we got Lou Bryson in there, Charlie McLean for the Scotch, Dave Broom, who kind of covers the world of whiskey. Peggy No Stevens down there in Kentucky. I thought I've seen Peggy present, and I love her and Susan when they do their seminars together. Phenomenal. So it was a matter of just helping him connect. And I do a lot of that within the industry. People constantly contact me and say, hey, do you know somebody who does this?
Yeah.
Or do you know a distiller who needs a job? Because of my work, I'm always traveling and I'm always running into folks. And I'm always running into folks who might be losing a job or getting a job or starting a distillery or selling their distillery. So I put people together. So this was kind of natural for me. Another reason why I was what was the title? I was supposed to be like the big grand poobah of the Whiskey Council, but that was in 2020.
Yeah.
I got burned. My whole first year is kind of the main
you got COVID shut down, man. Yeah.
So, but it was funny. I was just talking with Joey the other day, and we were talking about next year. And so too. So right now, big focus on bourbon and Scotch, but there's also efforts at some point to do Ireland.
Okay.
Want to do Canada. God help us if we do Japan, because these trips aren't cheap.
No doubt.
So next year we're doing the Isle of Rassy, which is not, you remember the Great Race, that TV show?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot like that. And just so you know, I'm asking, what the hell? I get it. It's really cool. It's a beautiful distillery and a beautiful island. But, folks are going to have to really get their mucklucks out and their maps and figure out how to get over there.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's that. And then we're already talking about Kentucky I'm assuming Kentucky. We're talking about bourbon, anyways, for 2025.
Okay. Yeah.
Already too.
Which will be great. So, because we get the designation Master of Bourbon, which I earned. And then, of course, there's Master of Scotch. But you now, for the Scotland next year, they're going to have a higher designation, which will be the Master of Whiskey, which you actually are the Senior Master of Whiskey. You kind of mentioned that. But there was a group of you guys that had that designation because you were educators. You traveled the world. You taught people. And I think that's really, to my understanding and what I envision the Council of Whiskey Masters, that's really kind of what the goal is, to establish the system of education and to bring people in and to teach them about Scotch and bourbon and to create a group of people who have this common interest, but also this common knowledge in terms of tasting notes and how we do things and how we advance that knowledge. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, no, I mean, in fact, that was part of the judging criteria is not only did you have to know the information, but how do you communicate it? Are you a good communicator? And then also, how do you hold yourself?
Right.
I mean, in this, if you're going out there and you're going to teach about whiskey, you also have to teach about responsibility. You can't be, down in the whiskey like you're in a frat house on Saturday night.
Yeah.
You got to be responsible and convey that to everybody you're teaching. So, I mean, that was really part of it. And as far as the Master of Whiskey with us, that was a title that was given to us. We actually, when did we start off? We started off as Johnnie Walker brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
Then we became Scotch ambassadors because we were also representing the classic malts and everything. And at one point too, before Diageo split from what was then Shufflin Somerset and became Moet Hennessy and Diageo, we had Dewar's and a couple of other scotches. But yeah, eventually there was only 7 of us. And I thought the coolest thing about that was that we were the first U.S. brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
Now, nowadays, you go to a whiskey event, there's loads of them.
Everybody. Yeah.
Right? Every brand has a brand ambassador. We were the first brand ambassadors. There were no brand ambassadors before us here in the States. Diageo, or actually it was United Distillers before that, was sending over guys like Evan Katnack and Gordon Bell. These were retired distillers who were coming over and doing the whiskey dinners and the whiskey seminars and wearing the kilts and have the Scottish accent and you got a real flavor for it. And man, that's what really got me into Scotch, was these guys. And so that was a cool thing. There was only 7 of us for the entire country. I had 12 states at one point.
Wow.
Everywhere from Fargo, North Dakota to somewhere in West Virginia. Yeah. Whole spots of, that was my territory. Back off.
Did you wear your kilt?
I did. I had to wear a kilt.
Awesome.
Which was a little weird because
Yeah.
I had here I am, an Irish boy from the southwest side of Chicago, and they slap a kilt on me, and I'm supposed to replace this Scottish Highlander guy who actually made whiskey. And they give you the title Master of Whiskey. So a lot of these people think, oh, you must make the whiskey. They're coming up to you and touching you. Back in the day, nobody had any idea what's a brand ambassador. What's having this connection to a spirit that you love so much. And let's face it, people who love whiskey.
Sure. Yeah.
How many people go and seek out where Grey Goose is made? Yeah, maybe if you're in the neighborhood, you'll go do a tour, but you don't seek it out. The passion for whiskey is always incredible. So when people were meeting us, it was kind of heartbreaking to tell them, I'm not really Scottish. From the southwest side of So So that was, I mean, but I would start off all my seminars with by using a fake Scottish accent, because I just thought I got to break this to them somehow. So because they had us in the kilt, then at one point they gave us the whole, Bonnie Prince Charlie outfit, the tails, the jacket, and the vest, and the whole garb. And so we go. I'd start off and say, "Oh, no, if you detect a slight bit of an accent, it's actually bogus. I'm from the southwest side of Chicago. Sorry about that." And I usually broke the ice, and people dug it. And,
but that's really cool that you guys, because you and Steve Bill, who was also one of our judges, were part of that group. Is there anybody else that's on the panel that was part of that?
No, the rest of the Masters of Whiskey have all been hunted down and killed.
Yeah.
Yes, so you know. Now, let's see.
They've been killed.
They've been killed. Wait.
I used to go to Dress to the Kilt in New York. It was a Diageo sponsored or Johnnie Walker sponsored event. I met Brian Cox, the Scottish actor.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
If you've seen the show Succession, but he was also the only Scottish actor. Fun little fact, little bar fodder for you. The only Scottish actor to appear in both Braveheart and Rob Roy, because most of the cast of Braveheart were Irish.
Oh, I did not know that
either. Only actor to be in both movies, and he was Scottish. So I mean, it was a great time. And as far as the others out there, I know Marcy Rudershausen. She was our gal in Florida. She did the Southeast. She is still active. In fact, she might be doing the world. If you're doing the judging, you'll probably meet Marcy. She and Steve, even though they're on different sides of the country, those two still communicate together quite a bit. Rick Edwards, up until recently, was with Stranahan's. I think the rest of them are all out of the business, though there was a bunch. As time went on, they started adding more and more.
Right.
And then they did away with it in 2016, which I thought was a big mistake.
Kind of weird. Well, I know we're not exactly the same, but I am, super excited to be part of what the council is doing and putting together these people that are passionate about it and educating us so we can go out and do these programs, like being on the news. I mean, to me, that's kind of part of the education part of it, is to, promote bourbon for me. So that's a lot of the fun. So Matt, let's jump back to the whiskey here. We're almost at the end of round 3. So let's talk about this Maker's 46 cask strength. What do you get in terms of the palate and the finish on this one?
The palate on the 46 cask strength, I get kind of a taste of cherry cola right up front for me. Then it lends itself to fresh baked bread, that like fresh out of the oven, still warm bread. Then there's a sweetness that's like a berry jam, kind of a jammy type berry note with sort of a crisp, sharp cinnamon hot finish. It's kind of how I would sum things up.
Sounds good to me. Marty, what do you get?
That's interesting. It was a little hot again. I don't know. I think my palate is just getting so sensitive to high strength whiskeys. It ruffles the tongue a bit. Yeah. But as soon as it landed in the back of my throat, right down here, I don't know if you remember the old Smith Brothers cough drops, the black ones. Kind of black licorice. You don't remember those? So it was a slight black licorice, not toned down, not super sweet. Let me go again. I add a little water to it, and it's so much more mellow now. That's nice. Little honeyed.
Oh, yeah.
It really clings to the tongue now. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. And the high ride joke is the fact that during the Master of Bourbon exam that we had Maker's Mark, not the 46, but it was regular Maker's Mark cask strength that was poured up for everybody. The judges were tasting blind with us, but all 7 candidates, apparently, we all believed that it was a high rye bourbon. And we stuck to it. I adamantly argued my position and why I felt that it was a high rye bourbon, and came to find out when we were finished with everything that it was actually Maker's Mark cask strength wheated bourbon. So, yeah, but that's what I wanted. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it goes to show you. I mean, I know many people think if it's a high rye bourbon or if it's a rye whiskey, it's going to be dry and spicy, peppery.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. I mean, a lot of times you can get a really nice, light, sweet. And so that's why I didn't hold that against you or any of you guys.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I go, you never know. Plus, I don't know. I'm not a big one, especially during my master whiskey days. People would always give me a whiskey and tell me what that is. And I go, look, I'm not Karnak. I'm not going to freaking, metabolize it and go, oh my God, you know what? That's a Glenmorangie 18-year-old with a Sauterne finish.
It's hard. People don't understand how hard that is, but it's a hard thing to do. There's no question about it.
I don't even think most people in the profession can't nail down what the whiskey is unless it's just something they're like. I could probably do it with Talisker.
Right.
Because Talisker to me is so distinctive as far as single malt scotches. When you're talking about bourbon,
yeah.
That's, to me, that's even tougher.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. So Marty, let me ask you this, because we're close to the end here, but before we wrap it up, Scotch or bourbon?
Well, you know what I always tell people? I'm a whiskey fan. That's
all right.
The umbrella term whiskey. It really depends on where I'm at when I'm drinking. One of the things I learned in Scotland when I went to the Isle of Skye and had a Talisker there, I go, oh my God, this is the perfect whiskey for where I am right now. I go down to Kentucky, I feel like an ass drinking a scotch. I got to have bourbon. And I have to, even though I work for Glencairn, and actually we make beautiful cut crystal tumblers to those out there interested. That's what I would love to have. If I can go to a nice, what's the Brown Hotel?
Yeah.
The lobby bar.
Uh-huh.
I love that bar. It's kind of classy and kind of goes with my whole James Bondian lifestyle. But if I'm in one of those big wingback chairs, you bring me a bourbon and at least, even if it's not really crystal, at least a cut tumbler.
Sure. Yeah.
That that's the drinking experience. That's what I love. So I mean, I'm whiskey across the board. I have favorites, but I have favorites in every category.
That's a good answer. I like that. So Marty, what has been your favorite part of this journey that you've been on? Do you have a favorite part? Something you can say, this is the best part of the experience for me?
Of the whole whiskey
industry? Your whole journey that you've been on for years now in the whiskey industry, everything that you've done. Is there anything that stands out that you think this is like my favorite part, or this is the best thing about it?
Well, I always look forward to the events. I really do. Going down there, running into folks. I guess you can say the people. I know it's kind of schmaltzy sounding, but I really do love the people in the industry. I love visiting distilleries where it's the main people. It's the folks who built it, who own it. You get to hear their passion. I love hearing their backstory. The fact that the guy used to be a pro golfer, or she used to be a teacher, and now she decided to start a distillery out of nowhere. And, what they've had to go through and how they're making it. I don't know. It's that kind of stuff. Obviously the travel is fun, though. I'm not a young man anymore. I'm not like young Matthew there being able to, God, I wish I could do an Ironman.
Yeah. Give me both, Marty.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
kind
the Bourbon Festival is, it can be a little bit of an Ironman, not to the same degree as yours, Matt, but, you know,
Depending, you didn't see Matt Friday night.
oh yeah, was it? Were you not? Were you doing a marathon at the booths?
I think I sprinted a little hard on Friday to make it through the marathon of the weekend.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
That's right. What do they say? It's a marathon.
It's a marathon, not a it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I went out a little hot.
We both decided to take Sunday off. We skipped. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
I wasn't going to go Sunday, but I did just
No,
to say my goodbyes to folks because it was great seeing a lot of those people, and there's a lot of folks who I only get to see maybe once, twice a year.
Right. Right.
So it's great to see him. Also, a big hand to Randy.
Randy
Prase for
Prase,
doing what he putting that show together. I think he's done a wonderful job. I mean, every time I go, it's bigger and bigger, and it's just so much work. And having put together the Indie Spirit Expo, which is nothing compared to what he does. That's amazing. He does a great job.
He and his team, I mean, they're great people and work their butts off to do that. And we're just thrilled. You know, we were the preferred podcast of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival this year, so we were thrilled to have that status. First time they've ever done that. But we have a great working relationship with them. And yeah, I agree 100%. So Marty, anything in the future coming up for Glencairn, for you? Anything you want to share?
Well, there's always something. The thing is, sometimes the boys they won't even tell me until it comes about. But there are some things in the works. I can't really talk about them now.
Okay.
Only because it's kind of a little bit of a wait and see. But I mean, there are always really interesting stuff. And in just the last couple of years, the last 2 years, things like the pipette and you've seen the colored Glencairn glass set.
Yeah, right.
Wine tasting set.
Yeah.
Things like that pop up all the time. Now I've convinced boys we needed, actually it was Randy's idea. He wanted a baseball hat with Glencairn. So now we offer that. And obviously the guys in Scotland go, "What's a baseball hat? What
the hell is that?
Is that anything like a rugby hat?" What else? So, I mean, for me, there's just going to be loads of travel next month. There's loads and loads and loads of whiskey and spirit events all over the place.
Yeah.
Especially here in Chicago. So it's kind of my job.
Yeah.
To be at all of them.
Well, maybe I'll catch at one. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Should come up. You guys should come up. The Chicago Independent Spirit Expo will be October 16th, Monday. Okay. And actually, to make a weekend of it for you guys, since it's a straight shot north, basically.
Yeah, 5 hours.
Kind of for this thing. You can go up north. Journeyman Distillery is opening up their new, very large, 140,000 square foot Valparaiso distillery.
Oh, okay.
And they're having their grand opening the 14th and 15th of next month.
Okay.
And on the 16th is the Indie Spirit Expo. And then 17th, 18th is the USA Trade Tasting. So you can make a little week of it.
That sounds like a good plan. We'll see if we can work that one out for sure. So, Marty, where can people find more information about Glencairn? And if you want to share about yourself, if they want to follow you or find you, if you're inclined to share that info.
I'm really secretive.
Yeah.
They can check out a lot of what we have to offer at www.glencairn.co.uk.
Okay.
But they can also find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. Don't befriend me on Facebook if I've never met you. Stop doing that, people.
Just don't do it. Don't send a request.
I have so many middle-aged men befriending me who I've never met, and I go, Why?
It's the beard.
What do you want to befriend me for? I sell whiskey glasses. That's all I do.
Oh, man.
But LinkedIn is a good place. LinkedIn is great. You can always message me there, and if anything I can do for you, I'm more than happy to.
Awesome.
And otherwise, you just go to your local whiskey event, and typically I'm there. If they use Glencairn glasses, I'll be there.
You can find Marty. That's right.
Glencairn, them using a Glencairn glass is like an invitation to a vampire. You just asked me to come through your doorway.
That's right. You just got to extend the invitation, and once he's in, you never know what's going to happen.
Then you are Scrooge.
That's right. All right, Marty, man, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
No, other than, go out, be fruitful, and multiply, people. Here's something I always told people. I'm sure you guys have whiskey collections, which is good, but make sure you're storing them properly, out of the heat, out of the light. Put them in a nice little dark cabinet somewhere. If you've opened it, drink it.
Drink it.
Don't let it sit around. You're letting the genie out of the bottle, even if you think you have a nice tight cork. Oh, and also, even though we sell beautiful, beautiful crystal decanters, which is a great way to serve your whiskey, I would not store a whiskey in a decanter. Not a good idea. It doesn't have anything to do with lead. You get more lead in your drinking water than you do from a whiskey decanter. It's again, you're just letting it dissipate because you'll never get a really good seal decanter.
Good advice for sure.
Free advice. I throw advice like a drunken sailor
dollar bills,
throwing.
Man. He's just throwing money.
Life preservers off the Titanic. If you pick one up, God bless you.
Oh gosh. Well, Marty, thanks so much. Matt, final thoughts before we wrap it up, man.
Oh, Mark, I gotta echo what you're getting at here. Marty, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us and give our guests a little bit of a view into the day of the life of Marty Duffy. We appreciate it. It's been super fun and really great to hear from you. I know we could sit around and just listen to you tell stories all night, and I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get another time, another episode, or do it in person one time.
There's an adult version of the show, Matt. I can give you some really good stories.
Perfect.
The Bourbon Life After Dark. Marty, man, thanks so much. It's so great to spend some time with you again. And I hate that we weren't able really to connect, but I know at the Bourbon Festival, man, you're on, you got your job to do. And Matt and I were there kind of in an official capacity, although we were drinking. We were having more fun.
Too.
Yeah, we probably had a little more fun than you had, but it was great to see you, man. And I hope to connect with you sometime very soon again in person, just to see you. You're one of my favorite guys in the industry, man, just because you're fun to hang out with.
Oh, thanks, guys.
No, I mean, you got great stories, and you're just a good guy. You're always genuine, and I appreciate that very much about you. And again, thank you and Glencairn for these beautiful Council Whiskey Masters glasses, man. I love these things. Appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time.
Especially with that logo, because that's it. Unless I don't know if we'll make some for the next.
Oh, okay.
Joey hasn't asked for any, so that might be all those kind of glasses you'll find.
There you go. Coming soon to a secondary market near you.
To a resale shop near you.
That's right. All right. Well, Marty, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it. I'm gonna get us out of here tonight. Thank you all, our listeners. Like Matt says, whatever time of day it is, morning, noon, or night, whenever it is, you get your Bourbon Life podcast feed. We appreciate you joining us and taking the time to listen to us. We also want to thank again all of our sponsors. We appreciate everything they do for us. We couldn't do this show without them. So thank you guys very much. If you want to send us a message, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. You can also join us on Instagram at The Bourbon Life, or on Facebook as well at The Bourbon Life. We have our private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We'd love to have you join us in there. We have a lot of fun conversations and things going on in there, so join that. With that said, I want to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.